Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning to you. Standing by alongside me, I'm very pleased to say, the IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva. Kristalina, thank you so much for hosting us here in Washington, D.C.
My great pleasure.
You and I have got a lot to talk about, and hopefully we've got enough time to talk about it all. So let's start here. The biggest risk to global stability right now, is it right here in the United States? Is it U.S. policy?
Well, U.S. policy has helped the world. Let's start from there. During the pandemic, the fact that U.S. stepped up meant a lot in terms of stabilizing the world economy. And today, when we are upgrading our growth projections from 3.1 to 3.2% to a great degree is thanks to the United States. This being said, all eyes are on the United States. One, what is going to happen with inflation and interest rates? Two, how is the U.S. going to navigate this world of more intrusive government policies?
Let's talk about the FX market to begin with. I wonder how happy the Japanese are. I wonder how happy the South Koreans are, the Malaysians, the Indians. I go through it one by one. In the FX market, as you know, Kristalina, we've got a record low for the rupee. The Malaysians have had to intervene in the FX market. The Japanese, the South Koreans are threatening to. Can you give me just a decent impression of what that's been like at the forum so far, the spring meetings? What have they said to you about that? How loud are the complaints?
Of course it is concerning because, as you said, when the dollar is up, many other currencies are down. Not all, but many other currencies are down. And what that leads to is concern about how long that may last. So that's what I hear from countries. How long would the Fed be stuck with higher interest rates? And when they start easing, can we expect that this would take the interest rates in the United States down a little faster? And the answer to these two questions is not an easy one. On the interest rates, the Fed is doing the right thing. They're watchful. Keep your eye on the ball. And at this point, the ball is bouncing up and down, and the Fed is not yet prepared, and rightly so, to cut. We still remain optimistic that within this year, conditions in the United States would allow the Fed to start cutting. For how fast, I don't think that we should gear up for rapid decline in interest rates.
Can I jump in and ask you what you think the source of that optimism is? What's behind that? What leads you to believe that those interest rate cuts are coming?
Well, what we're seeing is the economy is indeed slightly overheated, but part of it comes from the fiscal stance of the United States. So there is room to cool a bit the economy just by being more watchful, and it would help the United States overall because, as we know, deficit has gone up to 7%. The second reason is that so far the business environment in the United States has not reacted very firmly to the interest rates being high, but we see a little bit of softening underneath, especially in SMEs. And that tells us that high interest rates ultimately bite.
Can I tease that out just a little bit more? Are you effectively saying to us that the US exceptionalism that so many people are talking about is ultimately unsustainable?
I didn't say that.
I'm asking.
I would tell you what are the sources of this exceptionalism, and I think they're with us to stay. One is very deep capital markets. People are coming here not only because they can generate more income with high interest rates, they're coming here because the economy is very vibrant and capital markets are deep. Second, innovation in the United States moved very quickly from idea to a venture and then to scaling up. And three, the US is tapping into a very vibrant labor force right next door. What in the eyes of many people is a problem, and I admit there are elements of this flow of people that is concerning, is actually feeding into the labor market of the United States in a way that keeps wages lower than in some other countries and keeps the ability of businesses to grow basically unlimited.
You understand why that's a difficult political message, don't you?
Of course, and I would translate it in the following way, something that I think everybody in the United States is looking for, good, sound, transparent immigration policy. The US, if you look at the sources of growth on the labor side front, it is more people coming from outside that fed this exceptionalism of the labor market. But it has to be regulated. It has to protect the American people from those who may be coming here with bad intentions.
I can tell you something that's politically popular in America and elsewhere too. It's going after China. Excess capacity and potentially dumping goods on the international market. We're not just hearing that complaint from the United States. We're hearing that complaint from others as well. What's your message for the Chinese government at these meetings with those concerns in mind?
I was in China recently, and my message there is the same I would convey today. China is on fork on the road. They can continue with their traditional policy, and that includes industrial policy on scale towards export, or they can shift gear and concentrate on domestic consumption, on beefing up demand, and on continuing with market reforms that served them well in the past. We know from experience that industrial policy often produces misallocation of capital and labor. We are today in a world of weak growth prospects. The last thing we need is more misallocation of capital and labor.
The last thing we need is exactly what we've got, I'm afraid, Kristalina, because we're seeing industrial policy take off in America. We're seeing the Europeans trying to come up with their own form of it. It might take them a while. We know how Europe works. China's been doing this for a while. What you just said about China, I heard a decade ago, you've heard for the last 2 decades that they're going to shift this economic model. It doesn't appear that they are. I think a big question for us at these meetings, and I'd love for your input on this, I caught it with John Lipsky this morning, and I said, how does the IMF regain some relevance in this conversation to help reshape these outcomes? Because we're drifting away from free trade. We're breaking away from cooperation. We're going somewhere else.
Well, 2 responses. One, how do we, I wouldn't say regain, because I think we have quite a lot of relevance on that conversation on fragmentation and the benefits of an integrated global economy. We just have to continue to bring the facts in objective manner. And the facts are that when we go excessively in protectionism, in industrial policy measures, we risk to actually affect negatively prospects for growth, and we certainly create a wave, a down spiral, because experience tells us every measure of protectionist nature has 75% probability of reciprocity, and then where do we end? But the second point I want to make, and I'm making it most sincerely, we are in a world that is faced with massive transformation, the digital transformation, the clean economy that we aspire for. There is some value in using industrial policy to accelerate decarbonization, to make it so that the benefits of the digital economy are more fairly shared across society. In other words, when there is a market failure, yes, it is justified. You take a measure to correct it. Our worry is that when we looked at the massive increase of industrial policy measures, a good chunk of them do not reflect the market failure. So we will continue to speak truth to power.
Let's talk truth to power right now. We've got some spies around here. They know they saw you with the central bank governor of China yesterday evening. Can you tell me what you said to him?
What I told him is twofold. One is that China needs to continue to seriously address the problems of the property sector that have been handled somewhat, but not resolved. They need it for domestic consumer confidence, because many Chinese people think of their apartment as their saving for old age. They also need it because a sector of that significance cannot be put on hold. The second thing I told him is that we are now starting our Article 4 consultation. This is our annual taking the pulse of each economy with China. And that it may be very useful for China if we do more analysis on how they can boost domestic demand, how they can exercise their own decision for a dual circulation economy. Yep. And I was delighted that he sees value from the fund to get deeper in these issues and provide China with appropriate advice.
They're coming under pressure, you know, they are politically, not just from this administration, Secretary Yellen, but potentially another Trump administration as well. Mm-hmm. Do you have any concerns that they'll lean towards the FX market and just seek out a weaker currency?
Well, we haven't seen signs of that. But what I do believe is that yes, if China builds overcapacity and pushes export that create reciprocity of action, and then we are in a world of more fragmentation, not less, that ultimately is not good for China. China wants an integrated global economy. Therefore, what I want to see China doing is to get serious about reforms, get serious about demand and domestic consumption.
We've got so much to talk about, but unfortunately, I know you've got other things to do. Let's continue this conversation through the year. Kristalina, thank you so much and congratulations on a new term.
Thank you. Look forward to continuing.
Thank you so much. The IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva.